of children die every day as a result of child abuse. According to Child Help, a nonprofit organization dedicated to preventing child abuse, approximately 80% of those children that die are under the age of 4. I'm here today to share to you my knowledge from research as well as my own experience with child abuse, including emotional abuse and neglect. First, I will briefly explain what child abuse is. Second, emotional abuse. Third, neglect. And fourth, the effects of child abuse. First of all, what is child abuse? There's no universal definition for it, but most of us know it as deliberate harm to a child. What we don't realize is that it's not always intentional. Sometimes it results from over-discipline or inappropriately punishing a child. Physical abuse can result from minor bruising to death. When you hear of child abuse, we usually hear of physical or sexual abuse. We usually don't think of something like emotional abuse counting as child abuse. Emotional abuse, also known as psychological maltreatment, involves rejecting, isolating a child, which means denying them social opportunities, such as not allowing them to play with other kids, terrorizing a child, ignoring them, or corrupting them, putting negative social values into them. The most common form of abuse, neglect, is often very overlooked, and it is also the most common one. Neglect is when a child's basic or psychological needs are at risk or not being met. Examples of these are inadequate food, shelter, clothing, medical care, allowing them to be criminals, and not sending them to school regularly. Fatal cases of neglect often lead to death, and the most common one being drowning of children, and also car accidents. As you can see here, neglect is by far the most common form of child abuse, and you can see that note down there that it often conjuncts with other forms of child abuse. So what happens when you put together innocent children with abuse? Usually not very good. Based on the Child Welfare Information Gateway, adverse health and mental outcomes often happen in children and their families, which include attachment and self-esteem issues in children, as well as impaired cognitive development and academic achievement. According to Child Help, 30% of adults that were abused as children will abuse their own kids, as well as have a greater risk of becoming criminals in the future. In conclusion, I hope that everyone has a better idea of what child abuse is, emotional abuse, neglect, how it affects a child, and how it affects a child. Children's future are a reflection of how they were raised. Also, according to Child Help, 80% of 21-year-olds who were abused as children have been identified with at least one psychological disorder. As a victim of multiple forms of child abuse, I have been one of the fortunate ones that can say that I have lived, quote unquote, normally for the majority of my life. However, like the majority of other children, we all have those painful memories of our past, and we understand that child abuse is never okay.
Are you finished? Yeah, good. Okay.